I cannot believe that we are on day 3 of this series. It has gone by so quickly, and I hope that you have really felt the value of this series. I wanted to make sure that that is the case, and that's why I created a downloadable guide for you to take you through this series. So this series is all about how to advocate for yourself at work, whether it's a raise or a promotion or a resource or support or an opportunity, or if you are a CEO and you need to speak to the board about a new innovation you want to go for, this is going to help you in that as well. If you are a founder and you want investment money, this is going to help you as well. So this is great work, but the thing about this work is it only works if you work it. And so you want to get this downloadable guide that will help you personalize it to your specific situation. The link to do that, if you're watching on YouTube, is below me. If you're listening, it's in the show notes. Grab that guide, take it through, re-listen to days 1 and 2, and use it here on day 3, because today we are talking about mastering the art of the ask. This is so important, but it's usually what people want to start with. When people come to me for coaching or workshops and bring me into their organizations, they think we're just going to talk about body language and facial expressions. And here's a little something that you should know. The research on body language and facial expressions is not great. A lot of people are very popular here on YouTube and in their podcasts because they tell you that they can teach you how to hold your face and hold your body so that you have charisma. And if it were only that easy. But the truth of the matter is, research shows that you can't tell a lot about people from their body language, and your body language doesn't have the impact that you might think it does. We will talk in a minute about what does have that impact. So all is not lost. But before we get there, before we get to body language, facial expressions, tone of voice, we want to talk about what does it mean to master the art of the ask. And it really is less about you and it's more about the other person. You know, I had Dr. John Antonakis on the podcast the other week, a couple of weeks ago, and he is the premier researcher, real research, not just saying whatever he pleases, but true research on charisma. And the way that I define charisma might be something different than the way that others do. I don't believe charisma is what people say when you leave the room. Oh, she's so well spoken. She's so attractive. She's magnetic. She's exciting. She's a great speaker. He's a wonderful speaker. He's so good on stage. Those things to me are not charisma. What is charisma is the ability to get people to act. So as a leader, if you get your people to come on board with the innovation that you want to pursue, that means you have charisma. If you're a politician and you get people to go out and vote for you or campaign for you, that is charisma. If you are a lawyer like I was and you get people to change their minds and find for you in the courtroom, that is charisma. And so the ability to get people to act is what I am aiming for you, because to get a promotion, to get a support, to get a resource, to get an opportunity, to get the board to do something, to get an investment, people need to act. And so you want to get people to act. And the way that you do that is with charisma, but it means it starts with them. This is not manipulation and trying to get everything you want. The way that you get people to act is to know your jury and what they want. What do I mean by know your jury? You have a jury. In the courtroom, the jury was 12 people that I wanted something from. I wanted them to give me a verdict, give me a win. Your jury is the investors, the board, the boss, the team that you want something from. And you need to understand them and what they want and what their pain is. Because when you do, you can look at how what you're asking for serves them as well. And that's how you get it. So in the courtroom, the jury wanted to abide by the oath they took to well and truly try the case, and to try the case without sympathy or bias. And so my job was to help them do that. And at the same time, that helped me. If you are at work, you know, we've talked about the example of my client who is in the process of applying for a job that she saw on LinkedIn that wasn't exactly her exact curriculum vitae or resume. but she knows that the skills that she brings to bear are so applicable, are going to help the clients and the team at this organization so much that she's able to speak to the jury of each of the groups that's interviewing her in a way that they can see that hiring her will benefit them as well. That is charisma. But you've got to know your jury in order to do that. You need to know their pain. You need to know their challenges. You need to know what they want in life. And then you can speak to it. And this is a form of empathy. I did a TEDx talk about the name of the TEDx talk was Perspective Beats Empathy or something like that. I'll put a link to it in the show notes or below. But in that talk, I talked about the difference between perspective or seeing what the other person sees and empathy, which is feeling what they feel. Now, truth be told, there are actually two different forms of empathy, and I talk about this in the TEDx. One is affective empathy. That is feeling what the other person feels. You don't need to do that here. I know that's a little bit, some people think you always have to do that. It's not always necessary. And in fact, sometimes it hurts. Feeling what your jury feels, if you go into a meeting and someone in the meeting is worried about their kids or frustrated about something that went on at home or bored by their job altogether, you feeling their feelings is not going to make you a better advocate. But cognitive empathy, seeing what they see, seeing the world through their eyes, that is going to allow you to master the art of the ask, because you're going to use stories and evidence and metaphors and analogies that resonate with your jury, the people that can give you what you want, because you understand them. And so knowing your jury is the often overlooked but most important part of this mastering the art of the ask. And in that guidebook, I'm talking you through some questions that will help you to know your jury. But the next part of this is just as important. You know, a lot of times people will say to me, I just need to believe in myself. If I believe in myself, I will be able to be more charismatic and master the art of the ask. I challenge you to think about this differently and instead to consider that you need to believe in your jury. You need to believe that the board, the investors, the team, the boss is capable of seeing the value of what you bring to the table and giving you what you need and what you're asking for. You need to believe that they are open and compassionate and curious and interested and kind and creative enough to bring you into the fold and to give you what you want. Because if you don't believe it, they will feel it. As I mentioned yesterday, energy is your belief made visible. If you believe that your jury is closed-minded, not curious, stupid, selfish, they're going to feel that belief because it comes out in your energy. And so you've got to do the work to find a way to choose to believe in your jury. And sometimes that's hard work. But in the courtroom, you know, we often, we meaning attorneys, will sometimes protect ourselves by saying, oh my gosh, I have the worst jury. They're a horrible jury. I hate my jury. I've heard people say, I hate my jury. It's craziness, but it's a defense mechanism because they're afraid they're going to lose. But imagine if I were to go into the courtroom, look at the 12 people in front of me for a week, 2 weeks, sometimes a month that I'm going to be talking to about my case, and I hate them, or I'm afraid of them, or I don't trust them, or I don't believe in them, and I don't think they're smart. That is terrible for my case. They will feel that energy because energy is belief made visible. And that's not going to make me a very strong advocate. But I believe this jury wants to do the right thing. They are curious. They are smart. They are creative. They are listening. They are open to my argument. That's going to change my energy completely. So before you worry about them believing in you, try believing in them and see what a difference that makes. That will help you, I promise, to master the art of the ask. You have got to know your jury and you have got to believe in your jury. And again, in the guidebook, I'll help you with this. Then you can get to the fun stuff of storytelling and body language and evidence and all of the things. So let's start with the content and then we'll move on to the delivery. The reason we do that is because the content is very important. Those studies that people throw around that people hear more or believe your body language more than what you say, it's just not true. It's just not true. If you dive deep into that research, it is not true. If there is a conflict between what you say and what your body language says, yes, then they might believe your body language more. But if they're consistent, your words matter. Of course they do. So let's talk about those words. Storytelling is a huge topic when we're talking about advocating for yourself. And I love storytelling. I am a huge reader. I love stories. I've written 2 books. They have stories in them. And storytelling has its place, but that place is less often than we might like. So for example, right now, if everything I wanted to tell you, I told a story about, this podcast would never end. Instead, I have to use other tools that are just as effective in order for you to want to continue to listen, but also to learn. One of those tools that we don't talk about enough, but that's so important when you're advocating, is metaphor and analogy. And let me give you an example of how metaphor and analogy can work. So a few years ago, I went for a normal dental cleaning. And I have something called tori in my mouth, which is under my tongue. There's bone growths. It happens if you grind your teeth. It happens if you have Native American genes in your blood. It happens if you have Eskimo genes in your blood. It can happen for a bunch of reasons. They're called tori. And they're bone growths under your tongue. No, you can't see them. They don't, knock wood, mess with your life generally. But they have a very thin layer of gum over them, of skin over them, because they're, growing in your mouth. So I went for a normal dental cleaning, and the dental hygienist slipped. And when he slipped, the little hooky thing, that little scraper thing, hit my tori. I didn't think anything of it. He didn't think anything of it. I rinsed out my mouth. There was it was uncomfortable, but it was fine until about a week later, when I was in excruciating pain. And over the next 3 months, little pieces of bone came out from where he had nicked me. What had happened, long story short, is that the bone had died because it was exposed to the air and then splintered off into my mouth. It was terrible. I know it's a gross story, but it was terrible. It was traumatic. It was hard. And it took 3 months for those pieces of bone to come out. Now, when I go to the dentist, it's very scary for me. I go to the dentist. I don't go to the same dentist, but I do go to the dentist every 6 months for my cleaning like I'm supposed to, but I really get anxious leading up to it. And I was telling my boyfriend about it, and I've told him the story about what happened. I think I've probably even shown him the pictures of what was going on, and it's not cute. And, he's heard the story, he understands the story. But when I recently had to go to the dentist and I was telling him how anxious I was, he was a little, not dismissive, but he was sort of like, oh yeah, you're going to be okay. It'll be fine. And then I said to him, it's as if I was mugged walking down an alley, and now I have to go back to that same alley. And all of a sudden he got it. All of a sudden he was like, oh, that must be so hard. And just that shift in him made me feel better. But the story of what happened at the dentist, I mean, it's a little bit dramatic and kind of gross, but it's a story. But the metaphor, the analogy of walking down an alley, getting mugged, and having to relive that by going back to the place where that happened, that struck him in a different way. Metaphor and analogy can really hit people, especially if they find it applicable to their lives. So in the courtroom, we would often work to find metaphors or analogies that would resonate with the jury. If we were talking about a surgery, we might compare it to building something if it was an orthopedic surgery. Or we might compare, I had a doctor who I represented, an orthopedic surgeon, who would compare arthritis in the knees to the tread wearing down on a tire, so that people can visualize it, because we are visual thinkers in general. And so, yes, stories rather, are important, but so are metaphors. And in the guidebook, I'm going to give you some tools to help you to create metaphors in your life, because you will find that they are so impactful for the listener. I was coaching someone the other day and I gave her a metaphor for something and it changed everything for her. All of a sudden, I could see in her eyes that she had an aha moment. And she emailed me afterwards and said that that metaphor had made her understand. And so you've got to know your jury and know what metaphors and analogies might resonate with them, and then use those metaphors and analogies. And stories too, yes. But metaphors and analogies, I mean, the story that I told about the dentist probably took 3 minutes. The metaphor probably took 1 minute. And so you have lots of minutes and fewer, longer periods of time in which to advocate for yourself. So metaphor, analogy, storytelling, that is part of the content, but so is evidence. We talk a lot in my work about collecting and creating evidence. Collecting evidence would, and I'll follow up with this dental story just to make it consistent. If I want to, if someone wanted to persuade me that it's safe to go to the dentist, they could collect evidence of all the times in my life before and after this event that I went to the dentist and this didn't happen. And that is evidence that is collected. It's out there already. That's collected that this is a rare thing. Then, if I wanted to create evidence, I would actually go to the dentist and see that it doesn't happen. And therefore, it is a rare thing. Collecting evidence doesn't seem to have the same amount of weight as creating evidence does, because creating evidence is applicable to you in your life with your situation. But we can do both when we're advocating to others. If you want to prove that you deserve this raise, you can collect evidence of all the things that you've done in the past, and you can create evidence by going out and getting a new client today. Do you see the difference? Both of these types of evidence are extremely impactful when you are advocating. So evidence is a big tool when you are mastering the art of the ask. And then the ways that you share that evidence depend on your jury, which is why it's so important to know your jury. So you might share it in the form of data or stories or metaphors or pictures, graphics, video, audio, testimonials. There are so many ways to share your evidence, and you want to share it in a way that will resonate with your jury. And there's going to be more work on that in the guidebook as well. So then we move on to the delivery, the body language, the tone of voice, the facial expressions. And there are ways to influence your body. Breathing is a huge thing. Opening up your chest is a huge thing. Standing up tall, yes, of course. But the truth of it is, the most important part of your presentation when you are advocating is your tone of voice. There's a study out of Yale that says that you can tell more about a person's emotions from their tone of voice than their body language and their facial expressions combined. And we also know that it's very difficult. That same study out of Yale tells us that it's very difficult to fake your tone of voice. And people can tell your energy from your tone of voice. Energy is your belief made visible. So since you can't fake your tone of voice, you've got to go back to step 2 and really get in full belief when you are advocating so that they can hear it in your tone of voice. Because your facial expressions, your body language, you can do all you can to stand up straight and to put a smile on your face, but people can feel your energy and they can feel when that is fake. But your tone of voice will not betray you. And that is good and bad, depending on what you are actually feeling. So that is work to do as well. And it starts in your brain with what you are choosing to believe. All of this comes together to allow you to master the art of the ask. And it is a very step-by-step process. It's not easy, but it is simple. And there are provable ways to make it happen. But a lot of it has to do with knowing your jury, thinking of your jury, being tuned into your jury, because they will feel that and they will know it by the stories you tell, the metaphors you use, the evidence you use, etc. Now, if you're a frequent listener, you know that I often talk about these 3 steps in advocating across the board in all aspects of life: knowing what you want, asking for it out loud and with delight, and mastering the art of the ask. And one of my friends reached out to me and she had asked for what she wanted and she didn't get it. And so she said, well, what now? And I said, repeat. And so there's little asterisks to the 3. because sometimes you don't get what you want on your first round of advocating. And one secret that I have for you with this is if you don't get what you want, ask this question: what evidence would you need in order for me to get it? So if I want a promotion and someone else gets the promotion, or I just don't get the promotion, I would go to my leader and say, I understand that I didn't get it this time. What would I need to do in order to get it? What would you need to see? Because this is helpful in two ways. One is if they can't answer that question, then you have a problem, right? You may not be on the road to that promotion or that opportunity that you want. And number two is when they give you that information, now you know what evidence you need to create in order to get that thing. So that question is a really important one for you to go back and start at the beginning. Do you still want that thing given that answer? Do you want to work that hard, give that much time to this organization, give that much time to this board? You get to decide that. And then you need to ask out loud and with delight and master the art of the ask by having created and collected the evidence that they need to give you what you want. And that is the 3-step process for you to advocate for what you want at work. As I mentioned, that guidebook dives in deeper on all 3 of these steps. And if you start implementing these steps today, you can't learn to ride a bike on a podcast. I love listening to podcasts, but it's only when I do the work of implementing what I learn in my own life that things actually happen. So you have to implement this work. You have to go out and do it. And the guidebook will help you to do that. I hope you download that guidebook. I hope you use the heck out of it. I hope you print it once, fill it up, and then print it again. And I hope you reach out to me if you have questions or comments. If you're on YouTube, you can comment below. If you're listening on the podcast, you can reach out to me, heather@elegantwarrior.com, or follow me on Instagram @anelegantwarrior and comment there. I hope that you do this work. I hope that it works for you. And I hope that you let me know if you have any questions or comments. In the meantime, as always, take good care.